Good morning. Welcome to our Design Thinking webinar hosted by Milpark Education's School of Commerce. With you today, I'm Somila and I'm from the marketing department. And we'll be going through the Design Thinking webinar with Dr. Manti and Cyril. And for those who are new on the platform, just a few things to note. On the right-hand side of your screen, we've got a chat box running. Please pop in a hi, tell us where you're joining us from. We would love to hear from you. We also have a poll running. This is at the bottom of your screen. So please vote yes, and this will enable us to contact you and give you more information about our school and about our qualifications. And we also have an Ask a Question box. This is where you can pop in all the amazing questions that you have, and we will give you answers in our Q&A section later on. And now we will be handing over to Cyril to take us through the HCM qualification. Over to you, Cyril.
Right, good morning everybody and welcome to the webinar this morning. My name is Cyril Francis and I'm an academic at Milpark Education. The purpose of this webinar this morning has a dual function. First of all is to introduce you to a qualification that we offer at Milpark Education, a proud partner of the Stadio Group of Higher Education. And secondly, to expose you to one of our qualification modules. So the qualification under the microscope this morning is the Higher Certificate in Management, the HCM. So on the next slide, we look at the purpose of this qualification. So the HCM is an entry-level post-matric qualification for school leavers as well as for industry employees. But with loads of work experience. So in a case like that, we apply the recognition of prior learning, RPL, and accept potential students based on this evaluation. The qualification is geared towards the fundamental knowledge and skills or a tool set required by potential managers to execute the various functions of management in the workplace. So on the next slide, what is management? So in my mind, management is the ability to run a business successfully, with the emphasis on the word ability. So we're referring to the ability of the manager in order to plan, to organize, to lead, and to control, but also to be able to think on your feet. And therefore, this qualification has been designed to address that specific need. So if we look at the Higher Certificate in Education, it is a registered qualification with SAQA. As you can see from the slide, it's got an ID number. So therefore, it is an accredited qualification that you can do. You can have faith and trust in it, that it is part of the higher education framework of subject or module offerings. It's an NQ level 5 qualification, and you need 120 credits to obtain this particular qualification. So the delivery mode at Milpark is done on a distance learning basis. So in other words, we provide you with all the material, your assessments, and with a distance learning pattern, you then complete this particular qualification. The outcomes of the qualification is simply there to make sure that you understand the functions of management in terms of planning, organizing, leading, and control. And those are what we call the pillars of management, because they need to be present in an organization for an organization to function properly and be profitable and sustainable at the end of the day. But we go one step further, and we also look at analyzing the business environment. In other words, the environment in which an organization will operate in. And then very, very important in any organization, no organization can function properly without acquiring the skills of human beings. So we look at best practices in the work environment, selecting the right people for the job, and making sure that they are motivated and elevated in the workplace to deliver the best they can and to achieve company goals. We also move into some more modern technology and applications in the workplace in terms of project management, which has become very, very important in the workplace, and also other areas of innovation in terms of the technological world in which we are operating today. And therefore, it is important for you to understand that this particular qualification will give you an entry-level overall view of what management is all about and how it is applied in the workplace. And as we move to the next slide, it is just a short summary of the different modules that makes up this particular qualification. So the first one is what we call the management environment, and this is a compulsory module. So this lays the foundation of management for this particular qualification. So it gives you all the ins and outs of management, the knowledge, the techniques, the tools that you require. Then we move on to managing people. So how people are managed within the workplace, how they are recruited, how they are inducted, how they are trained. So anything that is human being related is covered in the second compulsory module. Then we move on to the third module, which is the introduction to management accounting. So a lot of people is most probably exposed to financial accounting, and financial accounting is one of the elective models of this particular model qualification. But we also introduce the student to management accounting, and management accounting is a very, very important function within the workplace, because that is the function that controls the day-to-day operational spending within the workplace, and that is monitored from a budget perspective to make sure that each and every unit within the workplace then operates within their budget parameters. The fourth compulsory module is that of project management, which we call integrated business projects. And this is where we take you on a journey on how to do a project within the confines of the workplace. Then we also look at the electives, and there are 4 electives and 4 compulsories. So you need 6 modules to complete this qualification. So the 4 compulsory ones you have to do, and then you have a choice between the 4 electives. And the 4 electives that we have is the fundamentals of strategic management, it is design thinking, it is financial accounting, and it is microeconomics, right? But looking at the fundamentals of strategic management is an extension of the management environment, where we now look at a more strategic focus of management and how that is applied in the workplace. Then we do financial accounting, taking you through the process of bookkeeping and the finalization of financial statements, the income statement and the balance sheet. And then we also do a bit of economics, exposing you to supply and demand and the macro environment in which companies do operate. But then we also have introduced a new subject about 2 years ago because of its popularity amongst management candidates, and that is called design thinking. And design thinking is what we're going to expose you to this morning via our specialist, which is Dr. Manti Grobler, and she's going to take you on a journey on how to apply design thinking in the workplace. Now, it is elevating the traditional way in which we used to think and finding quick solutions for a problem. But going on a journey through design thinking makes you think differently. It makes you think out of the box. And it also allows the other capabilities of your brain to come into action by ensuring that we do find solutions in the workplace that are more meaningful and has a greater sustainability in the end. But more about design thinking now, I'm going to hand you over to our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Manti Grobler. Manti, over to you.
Yes, am I all good? Yes, thank you. Well, thank you, Cyril. That was very eloquently put, and I'm so pleased to hear that lovely introduction for you. Michaela, I'm happy if you make the slides a bit bigger, and yeah, so we can really focus on the process of walking through the journey of design thinking. So just a quick check-in on the chat. If you can give me an indication on the chat, who of you have been in a design thinking project or experience, or know about design thinking, just kind of pop that in the chat for me around your level of experience with design thinking. And Lizray, I want to see you there. I know we've been on a journey with design thinking with you and your team. So please put up your hand there as well. And good morning, Jane. It's so nice to see you popping in as well. Always lovely to see you. Yet, I'm glad, Larissa, I'm glad you're saying yet. So I hope this is going to pique your curiosity for more. Yeah, so let me have a view on your level of exposure to design thinking as we start stepping into what is design thinking and how we can look at that. Thank you, Lizray. Yes, so yeah, I'm really pleased to be able to share this morning a little bit more about design thinking for you. And if we start thinking about what is design thinking, and we look at, Michaela, if we can go to the next slide, if we can look at kind of what is this messiness when we walk into a problem space. And even if we think about design can also sometimes feel quite messy. And the purpose of design thinking is literally to start thinking about how can we take this problem that we're trying to solve in the business context or in life that we want to address, and we know that there's an impact that we want to achieve. How can we take this kind of this messiness that's here in the middle, and how can we unravel that to have an approach of finding solutions with a deep understanding of who are we designing for and what we can bring out from the problem space to inform us of how we want to find solutions or innovate. So it's really looking at this messiness in the middle. How do we make sense of that messiness? And it came about from really understanding how design firms approach the creation of new services and products, and the way that a designer thinks when they approach a new challenge. So the biggest, I would say, what I would offer you is the biggest difference between how a designer approached this messiness in the middle. This messiness in the middle versus perhaps a business person, is that a designer first focuses on who am I designing for. So if we go to the next slide, Michaela, the real impact here is to say, if we want to achieve innovation, we really, and thinking like a designer, we need to follow a human-centered approach to innovation that really looks at how designers think and what are the toolkit of a designer from that creativity point of view, and understanding first and foremost, what would be desirable for people. What I'm going to come up with, is it going to contribute value? Is it something that people will want to use? And then look at, well, can we create the solution that we can come up with? In other words, Is it feasible? Do we have access to the resources that we need? And then lastly, can we afford it? Is it viable? So with design thinking, we really bring together all of these elements of feasibility, desirability, and viability in order to come up with innovation. But that still begs the question, so how do we do that? And if we go to the next slide, Michaela, the whole idea is that with design thinking, or the approach of design thinking, is that we flow through these free spaces or free places of core activity, where we really focus on how can we draw inspiration from understanding as much as we can about the problem space, flowing into the ideation space, and then flowing into how we're going to implement our ideas. So design thinking becomes this fluid approach to creative problem solving, where we draw inspiration from our problem space. We really really aim to understand as much as we can about the problem. We then flow into the ideation space or the brainstorming space, and then we try things out. So let's take a closer look at how we do this. So as I said, we with design thinking, it's no surprise that it's called design and thinking, because it's the way, it's drawing from the way that the designer thinks. And it all starts with really understanding what are we solving for. So it starts with the problem or the challenge that we're trying to solve. And that big question, who are we designing for? And by framing that challenge, we really spend time to define who are we solving for, what can we learn about the or how can we define the problem space, what is causing these challenges, and then very importantly, what are we trying to achieve and why is it important to solve this challenge? So drawing onto really focusing on who are we designing for and why is it important for them. We do that by engaging with the people that we are designing for. So a real human-centered approach, focusing on people, and we ask questions, we test our assumptions, and we do that by various means. There's always methods that we can draw on. So we do it by interviewing, by running surveys, perhaps, by observing, is there such a word? By observing, people in the context of the problem that we're trying to solve, and by drawing on existing data. So we do our research and we gather then as much as we can about the problem space. We don't rush into solutions. And I think anybody that has been exposed to design thinking with me before would remember that I always say stay in the problem space in the beginning stages of design thinking, because we want to uncover as much as we can about the problem in order that we can have insights. And this is where we then start going into the imagination space, where the first level or the first group of activities in the imagination space is where we want to make sense of the information that we gather. So by sense making, we want to unpack all the information that we've gathered in our asking phase, and we want to look for patterns or themes. We want to make sure that as a design team, we're on the same page. So we create our insights and share our insights. We have a tool called How Might We, where we use our themes to create smaller questions for interrogation, for our brainstorming activities. And we also have a way that we really understand who are we designing for by creating personas and looking at our stakeholders. Once we have those and we get to a point where we have our insights and we have our brainstorming anchor questions, we can then move into the second part of our imagination space, where we can start doing ideation through brainstorming. And the brainstorming, again, various tools, various ways. There's nothing as scary as sometimes standing in front of a white canvas or white board and it's empty, and people ask you, so what's your idea? So we always encourage using tools or templates, ways that will help you to think, and by using these ways to help you to think, we will come up with, trust the process, you will come up with solution ideas that then flow into solution concepts. We show you how to link these solution ideas together to create solution concepts. And then very importantly, how do we talk about your solution concept? And that's the pitch. And it's also, you can also think about it like your elevated pitch. If you have 5 minutes with a decision maker, how would you explain, how would you talk about your solution, your big idea, your solution concept? So we use a framework or method to help you to do that. And then it's ready to make visible. Now, making in design thinking is so important. We always aim to have an idea and then think about how can we prototype that idea. So we're really looking at building out that idea so that we can test our assumptions and we have something that is visible, tangible for feedback. And one of my go-to stories here is to think about how great designers like the guys who were working with Apple to design the first computer mouse, how they prototyped that first computer mouse using a roller, like a roll-on deodorant ball and a plastic dish, like such simple materials, but they use that to prototype the first rollerball mouse. It's so effective that they actually won the design work to work with Apple to build the first free rolling ball computer mouse. So prototyping really helps us to communicate our ideas and to get higher quality feedback so that we can move on once we can engage with our stakeholders and show this prototype to get better feedback. And that's typically where we do co-create sessions to ask for feedback. And based on our feedback, we know that design thinking is not a linear process. It's not like always in exact linear order that we go through design thinking. It's a creative process. And in a creative process, we're going to kind of sometimes go through these cycles iteratively. And when we get feedback, we know that we either have to circle back in order to ask for more information or to build on our prototype, to refine our ideas, or we can get a decision point where we can then take our design and implement our design. So that's in a nutshell what design thinking is all about. So if we just summarize this, it's really focusing on who are we designing for. We have a clear articulation of our problem statement or our design challenge. And then we go through these spaces of understanding, of asking information, collecting information. We then take that information, we unpack that, and we enter into the space of imagination where we can really come up and, I really feel like, yeah, I hope it's clear that I just love this. So by really connecting the dots, coming up with solutions, prototyping is so important, and then asking for feedback and having those decision points. So please, if there's any questions that you might have, pop it in the chat as well. If there's anything that you want a bit more clarity on, but I hope that kind of gives you the idea. But before we move on, I want to do like a quick fire chat exercise here. So pop in the chat. If you look around where you're sitting now, perhaps you maybe you're not at a desk, but you can remember what's on your desk. Or on your table, your workspace where you are, just put in the chat 3 things that you find on your desk. So I'm just looking quickly around here by me. I've got my, I've actually got my iPad here. I've got my, I've got coffee, and I've got, and I'm sitting on a chair. So those are my 3 things. Oh, nice. Sanitizer. That's the new normal, right? We all have to have our sanitizer close by. Cell phone, glasses, mouse, glass. Fantastic. So you all got your 3 things that you can. And remember those 3 things. We'll circle back to them in a bit. So remember your 3 things that you have. Yeah, fantastic. Great. Always interesting to have a bit of a look on what's on people's desks. I'm very curious, Jane, about your colored rocks. I'm sure there's a story to that. Larissa, why do you have an empty coffee cup? That's not on. No, fantastic. So remember your 3 things. We'll come back to that. So where do we start? I think for today, what I really wanted to kind of spend time on is the importance of defining that frame of design thinking. So everything starts with a well-articulated design challenge. And often we so focus on the problem that we don't see the opportunity in the problem. And with design thinking, right? With design thinking, what it helps you to do is to redefine or reframe that problem to an opportunity for innovation, for change, for value creation. So how do we do that? And why is it so important that we have that well-articulated design challenge? So in the chat, why do you think it is important to have a well-articulated, a clear, let's call it a clear problem statement that we should focus on? So if you think about, if I just say, oh, my problem is people don't participate in online meetings, is that clear? I'm not like really happy with that statement yet. So the invitation for the chat is, what do you think would be the value of a well-defined problem statement? So I just want to see if somebody, thank you. Yeah, so focus where to begin otherwise we're overwhelmed. We were not sure. Larissa, focusing on who you're designing for. You've already picked up the starting point of design thinking, and it will definitely save time because we won't chase down the wrong rabbit hole. We'll be more focused. Lizrack, clarity and simple, very, very good as well, because it helps us to focus. And the problem with a vague, oh, somebody's been paying attention, Sadia. Who, what, and why? That's very good. Yeah. So the problem with not a well articulated problem, like just saying people don't participate in online meetings, what our brains do is immediately we're trying to fill in the gaps, and we do that by making assumptions. And I think we all know what is the problem with assumptions, right? It can just lead us to the wrong actions, or bark up the wrong tree. So by just already thinking about stating a problem in a question, and start thinking a little bit more around how we phrase our question, sets us already in the right direction. So by just taking a problem statement like people don't participate in online meetings, and by introducing the question, how might we, is that right step that we're going to take. So that's always our first place where we then can say, well, how might we enable people to engage in online meetings? So it's moving from a problem into a question for possibility, into an opportunity to start looking at change. So the question is an invitation now to say, well, if how might we enable people to engage in online meetings? Can you see how we reframe the problem already, and how we move into that inquiry space? So that is what we want to aim towards, is how can we create that opportunity for inquiry and for curiosity to engage in the problem and know what we want to focus on. So the in design thinking, what we teach in design in design thinking is to think like a designer. And by framing a question with how might we open that problem into opportunity for possibility. And there's reason why we use these words. Language is so important, and language, let me not go into my whole another different topic about the words that we use, but it's really important that we think about how we state problems. So by using how might we set ourselves up for possibilities. So how is solution orientated? It's thinking about many ways, like how might we, just possibility. Might, it's just engaging with optimism. It's exploring. That's the word I'm looking for. It's exploring what you might want to do. And the we is, again, it's a confirmation that design thinking is a bit like a team sport. You're not on your own. You're going to engage with a design team of diverse thinkers and diverse skill sets in order to find solutions. So if we look at a good articulated design challenge, it has these elements, and we're going to see how we're going to build that out, and how you can relate to that in and applying it to other problems that you might encounter at work. So we always start with giving some context. So if I think about my previous example where I just say people don't participate in online meetings, I didn't give any context. I didn't say what is the, how can we build out, or how can we already create a scope or frame of why we say that. So, and I like to think about these context, bits of context that we put in the design challenge as what is causing this need for change. So what is driving this need for change? We are human-centered in design thinking. So in our design challenge, we always say, who are we designing for? So it focuses on the people that are impacted by the challenge. So who are we designing for? It also articulates the goal that we want to achieve. So if we say people don't participate in meetings, what is the goal? We want participation, we want engagement. So we want to state it as a positive goal that we want to achieve. And lastly, we link into a motivation of why is it important to who are we designing for. So really focusing on the people, not the bottom line, not the we're going to increase revenue, or we're going to be more effective. Those are company organizational outcomes that we will, it might be, given the context of your solution, of your problem, it might be things that you achieve as well. But at this point in time, we're really putting the mindset, we're focusing on who are we designing for, and linking into why does it matter for people? What will they get out of it? So we're opening the door already here for change management and for buy-in and for co-creation with who are we designing for. And then lastly, and very importantly, it is solution free. We don't sneak in elements of solution in our design challenge. We don't prescribe. We don't assume. We look at the problem space, and we're focusing on some context, some who are we designing for. We look at the what are we want to achieve and the how. Did I just say how? I hope somebody caught me out. We don't do the how. We say the what and the why, not the how. I'm so focused on solution free that I say the how out of place. So those are the elements of, or the, almost want to say the recipe of a good design challenge. So where do we start? Now, often when I do design thinking facilitation, what I'm going to take you through now, this is a session by itself where you engage with who are you designing for, with your stakeholders, and you really spend time to frame the design challenge in a proper way. And it's so valuable, because if you get it right, if you put in the work in the beginning, everything else falls into this frame of your design challenge, and you are clear on the context. You can test your assumptions. You are clear on who you're designing for. You are clear on the goals that you want to achieve, and you're clear on why is it important, why does it matter. So how do we do that? So first of all, where you start is to just write down your problem. So like we did with this example, where we just say people don't engage in online meetings. That's the problem. That's the frustration that we want to solve. So it might be, customers are complaining about the level of service, or salespeople are demotivated, or we are our employees are frustrated with working remotely. Just put in the kind of that statement that you want to put in at this point. So you write down the problem, and then what we're going to start doing is to now engage with that problem, and we start thinking about what is causing this problem. So what is driving us to this change? So for example, if I think about the challenge around online meetings, so we can think about, well, online meetings are now the new normal due to lockdown, and people, most people working from home. People are constantly online, and meeting fatigue has set in. And also, not everyone has a dedicated quiet workspace at home. Now, we know that a lot of people have to share spaces at home, and it's dual purpose. We are sharing, with our children doing schoolwork, or if you've got a partner and they're also working. So there's this challenge that we have with working in these spaces. So this gives us already can you see how it starts painting a picture of the problem? So yeah, in the chat. So what's your thoughts? Can you already start seeing now? It's not just people don't engage in online meetings. We start painting a picture of what is causing this problem. So can you see that? So by just starting to articulate the context helps us to kind of set the scene. And then we are ready to start thinking about, but if that's the context, who are impacted by that? So who are we designing for? And a nice way to do this is by looking at those three I've lost my word, those three elements that you want to test your solution by. So who needs to find your solution desirable? Who needs to find your solution feasible? And who needs to find your solution viable? So remember, yeah, you're quite right. This reality of working is we need to keep that in consideration, this multi-shared space, and how are we going to solve for that? So and Larissa, very, very good pickup there. We are conditioned often in the workplace to really jump into solutions very quickly, and by doing that we lose a lot of value and we run into problems later on because we're still then working on assumptions. So by going through these steps helps us to get that clarity of the right focus and the right solution. So just kind of to to conclude this is thinking about who are you designing for. Desirability is who are directly impacted by the problem and who will be the recipients of the solution. So who needs to find your solution desirable? Feasibility, who is going to help you build whatever solution might come. So in an organization, you'll have a good gut feel that you need to have different teams on board. So you need to think about who's going to give me resources to do the analysis, or if there's a potential for a IT component, then who do I need to pull in to give me access or resources if it's a digital solution. So feasibility really talks about my resources, and resources can be access to people or access to technology, know-how, and so on. So think about who's my decision makers in that space. And then very importantly, on the viability side, that is where we think about the business case that's going to come down the line. So who's my decision makers? If I need to ask for funding or for budget, who do I need to put on my communication plan so they know what is coming? So those three elements help us to think on who we need to include in our communication strategy or in our information gathering activities. So we create a stakeholder map. The one that's really important for our design challenge is the desirability one. So those are the people that we are designing for. So, but keep in mind all of those others. And once we've done that, we can then move into the fourth element, which is identifying the goals that you want to achieve by solving this challenge. And here the thinking is we want to look at long-term goals. So what would be the long-term impact that we're going to receive by solving this challenge, and there can be near-term or key outcomes that we can also identify. So, for example, if we solve this challenge, it's going to have such an impact on our employee experience. So that is an impact that we're going to have. And if we can have a better employee experience, what are we going to have? Well, we're going to have more productive meetings. That's kind of a clear given. And that means that we're going to get more done. We're going to get happier people. We're going to get more focus on results, more better team dynamics. So there's so many good things that can happen if we solve this challenge. So an exercise, this is where we do an exercise to really identify all the benefits that we can have, all the goals that we're going to achieve by solving this challenge. And note, no word yet on the how. This is just purely focusing on the what. The how is what we will discover through doing design thinking. So here's just to say, well, we want to solve how people engage in online meetings so that we can have an improved employee experience, or that we have an improved employee experience and more productive meetings. If we then move on, once we've identified our goals, we can say, well, what is the so what? Now I'm looking at what I did here now. My examples, apologies. The example here is not, it's copied from the previous slide, and I didn't change it. So it's always interesting how you look at things and don't pick that up yourself. So what we do here is to really think about why does it matter to solve this problem? So we're focusing on who we're designing for, and we think about if we have improved employee engagement and more productive meetings, what will that give the people we're designing for? Why does that matter to them? So what does it mean to have improved employee engagement? So if you think about yourself, so let's co-create this one quickly. If you think about yourself and you think that you're experiencing engagement, real engagement in your team, how would that make you feel? So in the chat, what do you think? How would that make you feel if you have an improved employee engagement? Yeah, so motivated, Rumela. What else? Definitely, I would also feel, go. I'm motivated. What else? Yes, such a satisfaction of being here and knowing that we make a contribution, right? Anything else? Oh, Larissa, yeah, deep sense of commitment. Because if I'm engaged, I'm giving something of myself. I'm committed into this team. So all of those things. So you're definitely on the right mindset and accountability. Oh, so glad Titus Titus, that you're mentioning accountability, because that's also part of what we get. And sometimes we forget the both sides of the coin. So we are committed, we're motivated, we're satisfied, but we also, as a team, improve levels of accountability. And that's how we start building good team dynamics, all layers of team dynamics. So all of those things is what we hook onto when we look at the motivation of why is it important for the people involved in this challenge that we solve this challenge, so that they can feel motivated, so that they can experience commitment and accountability and have this sense of satisfaction for being being in this team. So that's what we're linking on there. We also unpack at this point in time more context or constraints that we need to consider when we look at this challenge. So really kind of coloring in as much as we can that will set us up on the best way to solve this challenge. So some of the constraints that sometimes come up is, is there specific regulation that we need to consider, or cultural aspects that we need to keep in mind, or access to technology, or is there a time constraint? So all of these things that we can map out and say, these are kind of our guardrails that we need to kind of put around our work that we're going to do, because it doesn't help if you come up with a solution that is against policy or against regulation. If it's internal policy, maybe there's another stream that you need to address or investigate if you can amend policy, as an example. But often it might be, if you think about in a financial organization, they are governed by financial regulations that you cannot steer out of. So how do we keep that in mind, and so on? So culture is also a very interesting one, where we depend on the environment that we design in. Keep in mind the organizational culture and community culture. So there's different things that we need to keep in mind there. And then things like technology, especially in the context of our problem statement here about online meetings, reminding us all that in our organization, perhaps there are different technology devices that people use, and not everybody has got access to fiber and uncapped data. So that could be information that we need to consider. And then, as we said, the realization that we need to consider shared home environments that are multi-purposed. So those would be things that will inform how we approach our challenge. And then finally, we can now use all this unpacking and understanding and analysis that we did around the design challenge to bring it into our design challenge question. So we're framing it now in this this articulation of the challenge. So, for example, given everything that we've done so far, we have, given that we are working from home, some in multi-purpose spaces, and experiencing meeting fatigue from being constantly in online meetings, how might we help our employees to participate in online meetings so that they have a positive work experience and feel energized? So just one take on the problem statement. But can you see how that gives us this frame now, this beautiful articulated frame with so much information, so that if we now start engaging with design thinking to solve this challenge, we've got guidance, we've got clarity, we can really kind of focus on the right things. So just as a reminder, the template that we use for articulating a well defined challenge, and I would encourage you to apply this when you next have to work on a problem, is to always say, given that, and we give some context, how might we help? Who are we designing for? 2, what do we want to achieve? What are the goals? So that, why does it matter? Why is it important that we solve this? So it's a beautiful template, simple, but it addresses the context, the who, what, and why, and it sets you up that you can then, with clarity, focuses on the how, which is then going into the design thinking process. So remember those 3 things that we've identified earlier on, about 3 things that we found around our desk or on our desk. Now think about 3 things that engages you. So if you think about how we engage, things that really grabs your attention, you feel you engaged in the moment, what are those? So what comes to my mind of 3 things that engages me are humor, I think dancing is a great way of getting me engaged in the moment. And I think what engages me as well. So what are your 3 things that you feel engages you in the moment? Oh, nice one there, Michaela. Ramila, that's also interesting. So you're really interesting in people's stories. Larissa, nice one. If you feel people are authentic, or you connect to that sincerity of people. Book readings. Oh, Titus, that's a nice one as well. Really feel engaged in the moment. Samila, yeah, lovely. Music as well. Music it's got such a power. Mbali, listening to radio, that's also a nice one if it's interesting. Programs, exercising, definitely. You lose track of time. You're in the zone if you get your body moving. That's a really nice one. What else? I want to see some more. Okay, so I hope you've all got some things that that you find engaging. So if we go to the next slide, Michaela, we're going to do a quick exercise here for ideation, for the design thinking, coming up with a quick solution here. So if you think about your 3 things that you had on your desk or at your desk, select one of the ones that you had on your first list of what you find at your desk. For example, I had a chair, and then your engage list, 3 things that engages you. Select one thing. So I had, for example, chair and dancing. And now you're going to do the mashup. So the mashup says if you take like one thing from your desk list and one thing from your engage list and you put it together. So I'll have chair and dancing. And then I would say, well, how can I use the idea or the inspiration from chair and dancing to improve engagement in online meetings? So what would be your pace? So let's do, I see we are rapidly running out of time, but just give me, somebody give me a quick example of what would be their combination and how could that add value to improving engagement in online meetings. Larissa, you need coffee. Yeah. So my example would be if I think about combining chairs and dancing. If you have a team meeting and in the beginning of your team meeting or at the end of the team meeting, you invite everybody to get up off their chairs and you play one song and you invite people to put their cameras on because nobody's watching in any case, but there's a connection and there's a fun element to this. And for that one song, you get everybody to move, to have a bit of a jive and dance. The level of engagement is just out of this roof. People, it really works. So, there you go, Michaela. Yeah. So So this is just a quick little fun exercise of what we do in design thinking. And if you want to learn more, then come to do the elective of design thinking. Right, Cyril, I'm inviting you to go on this journey. So the skills that we develop with applying design thinking, it's things like empathy, by really understanding who you're designing for, and connecting to the problem from their perspective. So experiencing empathy. We learn about co-creation, collaboration, and diversity, and full set of diversity, from diversity of ideas, experience, people, the whole spectrum. We learn about iteration, and by testing things fast and getting feedback. We learn how to properly explore problems and getting to the root of a problem. We access our imagination. This is such a favorite part of how we learn and apply our imagination for creative thinking and for finding solutions. We learn how to do ideation or brainstorming in a variety of ways and build our skills around that. We build our creative confidence, and that's a life skill. That is, if you're confident in your creativity, it spans everything. Your whole life will be changed forever. And we learn how to work with limitations in Excel. And we learn how to apply the beginner's mindset. And most importantly, we get out of that box. It's fine, Michaela, we can get to the last one. So as an invitation, I would really encourage you to apply these 7 steps that we've shared around looking how you would take a problem and move it into an opportunity. And just as an individual reflection, if you look at that list of creative skills that I've shared with you, now what can you apply to yourself, and how would you build your own creative capability? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manti. That was very informative. I have learned so much. And thank you to everyone that has joined us this morning. You've been such a great audience, and you've been very interactive. If you guys have any questions, please remember to pop them on in our Ask a Question box, and we will answer those questions. And remember to vote on our
Thank you very much, Manti, for a very comprehensive overview. I think from my side, I've been listening with great curiosity, and I'm excited because I'm dealing with this on a daily basis. But I was just looking at, the song of Frank Sinatra that says "My Way," and it says, "And now the end is near, so we face the final curtain." But everybody on this platform, so now the end of the presentation has come, but it's now your responsibility to take what we've exposed to you today and make it part and parcel of your everyday living, and see how we can stop making quick decisions based on our perceptions and how we've been thought in the past, our thinking patterns, right? Because we are so quick sometimes to find solutions without understanding the real problem and what the opportunity in solving that problem can actually bring to the table. So that brings us to the end of this webinar this morning. We thank all the role players for doing what they have done. We're out of time, Michaela, or do we still have some time for questions?
So we are at the sort of last bits of the presentation. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela. I'm the one who's been facilitating the slides, going back and forth. So if you want to know who it was me. It's wonderful to see everyone. So yeah, what I would suggest, Cyril, and to Manti and to Samila as well, say, guys, please say yes on the poll. This is the stuff. If you want to know more and you want to ask more questions and get involved, please come to us and start the high certificate in management. Come engage with us and have these thoughts and solve problems with Manti. I invite you to please say yes on the poll, and I'm going to hand over quickly, Cyril, just back to Samila, and she will take us through the final checks and to see everyone's good to go. Cool.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Cool. So thank you everyone again. And as Michaela said, please do vote yes on our polls. This will enable us to contact you and send you all the information that you require on our courses, as well as our school and everything that involves Milpark. And now, thank you just to close off. Thank you, Dr. Manti. I've learned so much. And thank you very much, Cyril. Next week, we're having another webinar on business ethics. So I invite everyone to come join us again, and we'll be talking about everything business ethics wise. Looking forward to seeing everyone next week. Have a lovely day. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.